Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. If I can just get a couple of you to in your chat box, I want to make sure the audio is okay. So if you can hear me, if you can just respond in the chat. Are you guys able to hear us? I just want to double check. Awesome. Okay. Great. Well, thank you for joining today's webinar. It's on how to attract your dream client without cold calling every day with Erik Hammond from Orange Stack. Now, before we begin, I want to speak a little bit about Allison James. Allison James Estates and Homes is a nationwide brokerage which offers 100% commission, 100% support, and zero franchise fees. Why split your commission if you don't need to? You earned it all, so shouldn't you keep it all? Our goal at Allison James is to always give back to our agents by providing education, training sessions, live webinars, live events, and full broker support with the most up-to-date tools and technology available. We are always looking for new tools and ways to be able to provide them to our agents at a lower or discounted price so you can keep your hard-earned money. We are also proud to announce that Allison James Estates and Homes has recently partnered with the #1 lead generation, CRM, and automation system, KV Core. We are thrilled to provide this amazing product at a low cost to all our agents. Signing up for KV Core outside of Allison James would cost over $500 a month. So we're really proud to be able to provide this product at a deeply discounted rate. Today's webinar is sponsored by our preferred lender, Movement Mortgage. For more information about Allison James Estates and Homes, please visit us at www.ajicareers.com. Now, if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, please feel free to submit your questions into the chat box on your Zoom control panel, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I would like to now hand it over to our speaker today, Erik. Hi, Erik.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always. I'm going to make you the presenter so you can switch over.
Give us a sec while we transition here.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, cool. And I think, yeah, so we still see the slides. I'm a video person, and I love being on video and talking to you guys through video. That way we can interact and engage. So hopefully everybody can see me. Right now, I'm in the corner, so if that works for you guys.
Erik, if you go on your panel and do share screen, you'll be able to share a video if need be. And if you're having a hard time with it, you can just send it over to me as well.
Yeah, it's basically asking to share my screen.
Yeah, you can do that if you want to share a video.
Sorry, the video of me, just so you can see me full screen. That's all. I don't want to share my desktop.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I'll let you figure that part out. I'm just going to get into it so that we can make the most of this hour. Cool, guys. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you being here. And it's always fun to share the stuff that I've been learning in my life with you guys and teaching you guys some of the skills and abilities that you guys can have to lead generate as a real estate agent. So I wanted to kind of tell my intro story just to kind of build some reference into where we're going today. I know many of you have heard it quite a few times, but I think it's going to tee up the content that we're talking about pretty well. So I've been in real estate for just over a decade. I got into selling real estate and buying and selling homes as flips and rental properties back in 2009 when the economy was just tanking like crazy. I'd recently gotten out of a construction job and was looking for something a little bit different where I could control my income and do things with my own ability. So I got into real estate, my wife and we started flipping homes. We started acquiring rental properties, and just the exciting things that I enjoyed about real estate was that, you know, you could make as much money as you possibly wanted. The sky was really the limits. And I think that a lot of us are kind of maybe chasing that same dream, but like the harder that we work, the more that we can make, which is great. And I think that real estate offers that opportunity for many of us. You know, if you want to do it part-time as a stay-at-home parent, it offers that luxury to you. If you want to go at it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, again, the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you really want to. So basically, fast forward in a couple of years, I moved to San Diego in the end of 2013, 14-ish, and partnered up with another guy who he and his wife were selling real estate. So the three of us kind of came together, and we started up a team where we found out the key elements of that team of what we needed, right? So we had, at the time, basically a couple buyers, or a buyer's agent, his wife, and then a listing agent himself. And then basically I was the one who was in charge of getting us in front of prospects, right? So I was in charge of leads. I was in charge of cold calling people. I was in charge of, you know, following up with our Zillow leads, all that. So I was kind of the behind the scenes person who could tee up our listing appointments. And so after a while of working together, we decided to grow and kind of expand and see what was possible and what we could get to. Just real quick side note, it's a black screen on my end, so I don't know what you guys are seeing, but just want to make sure that you guys can see me. So we started growing our team, and the first couple of people that we hired were more buyer's agents because of the amount of appointments that we were getting. We started taking on more listings and just really conquering our area. I'm down here in the San Diego County area. There's probably a couple of you who are on the call today or in this area, or at least in the Riverside area, who understand the competitiveness of what Southern California real estate is all about. Currently, we have in the works probably about 40,000 real estate agents, from what I understand, in this area alone. So there's a lot of competition, a lot of people. The average real estate agent sells about 3 homes per year. We were basically getting to the point where we were trying to maximize our area and do as much as we could in San Diego County. And so we quickly started to teach courses. We started to get into the process of showing our clients exactly what we did as real estate agents. And we started to stand out in that fashion. And so we went from about 75 transactions our first year, just over 100 the next year, and we progressed further on from there. We got eventually to the point where we were selling just over 200 homes per year here in San Diego County, with our average price range being about $675. It was a good amount of income, and it was great, and it was a fun learning curve for me. And so just kind of touching on some of the story there, what happened along the way was that we found we could get on the phone all day long, right? We could call and call and call, but it was one of those one-to-one type of things, right? Like when you pick up the phone, you're talking to one person at a time. When you get to the point where you get a dialer, you can still call 4 people. If you've ever used the dialer, it's one of those, like, it rings four different people at the same time, but then when one person picks up, it drops the other 3. You're still talking to one person. But we had a dialer, we had a little call center in our office, we hired a couple ISAs, if you're familiar with that is, and they would be on the phone anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day. We found the key times of calling were typically around, 8, 9 in the morning when people were just kind of getting to work, and then later in the day between like 4 and 8 p.m. because people were kind of home, they were checked in, they were doing their thing, and it basically allowed our callers to be on the phone at the correct time so that people were answering the phone. We wanted people obviously there to answer the phone. We left voicemails. We had a script. We knew what we were doing, right? So we quickly became known in our office as the 1,000 calls a day team. We were calling basically 1,000 phone numbers every single day between our 3 or 4 ISAs that were on our team. Each of them had their little areas that they would call. We basically broke it up geographically so that, somebody would call the north, somebody would call the south, somebody would call the east, somebody would call the west. They just knew their script. They knew the area. It worked out really well. And we became very proficient on the phone. But again, we realized that no matter how much you called, you still only could have one conversation at a time. So after calling for several hours a day, we realized that our ratio was about 4 to 6 conversations per hour per ISA. And obviously the conversion there was, how many conversations could you have to get to how many appointments? And we weren't perfect by any means. There was no way we were at 100% close ratio. But what happened was for about every 20 conversations that we'd have with a seller or with a buyer or somebody that we'd talk to on the phone, we would typically set up 1 listing appointment. So that worked out well as long as we had our conversations and as long as people were picking up the phone. And we basically had worked with our title company and a couple other data source companies to download the whole entire San Diego County phone book into our CRM. And it just basically teed up the callers to call. So we had everything dialed in. It worked out pretty well. We were going on 3 to 4 listing appointments a day. Our close ratio was about 30%. So we were taking about a listing appointment every single day. And to most people, that sounds super successful, right? It just was kind of going that route that made the most sense. But again, we were limited. It was hard to get outside the area. It was hard to find people who were capable of being on the phone that often, who could nail the script as clear as our callers were. Like, our goal was to start expanding into 8 and 10 and 12 and 15 callers so that we could cover the whole county. Our goal was basically to call the whole county of San Diego twice per year, which was a big task. There's a lot of people who live here, and it was really the moment we were trying to go for. The other thing that we were trying to do is, being kind of tucked down here in the southwest corner of the United States, we were trying to kind of expand into other counties. We were trying to get into LA and Riverside. And as you know, real estate is a very geographic location, right? So if I were to call a for sale by owner or an expired listing 2 hours away and they said, yeah, come on over, we had to go over, and it was a long drive. And so the process of expanding and getting into new areas was also a struggle for us. So I was trying to weigh all these different things that we were doing, trying to see, does it make sense to maybe start a remote location in another part of California, or do we pick this up in another state? But then basically we had to replicate everything that we were doing in Southern California somewhere else. And so expanding that model to another area was challenging. And we realized around 250 transactions, we were pretty much tapped out for our area. We became basically the number 2 team in the county. That was basically 2016, towards the end of 16. And in 2017, my partner and I both agreed that, real estate is a lot of fun. We both enjoyed what we were doing, but there's other interests that we had in this life business-wise. And so we still both hold our real estate license. I still sell a couple homes a year. I am actually licensed with Allison James. Love their model, love everything that they teach. But it's not something that I do full-time anymore. What happened towards the end of that time was that I realized I really enjoy seeing people succeed in growing businesses and helping try to solve that problem that I could in our business, and help the other agents in our office that I was in try to solve the problems that they were having. Because as one, man or woman teams, it was hard for them to be on the phone for the amount of time that they needed to get the appointments that they needed to be able to go meet with the listings that they needed to, and try to do all that in one single day. So the problem is dividing up your own time to lead generate, to follow up, and to close the appointments that you had to be on, as well as servicing the clients that you already have, right? As we know, listings take a lot of effort. Working with buyers takes a lot of time. I just sold a house actually 2 weeks ago, and I think we probably looked at 30-something houses, which is partly on my fault because I wasn't able to clearly find out exactly what they were looking for. But by any means, it takes a lot of time to sell real estate. And so you get to the point where you become kind of the threshold or the bottleneck of your own business. And so I tried to find out a way of how I could replace myself as the lead generator. And obviously we could go hire ISA teams. There's plenty of businesses in the Philippines or throughout the world where you can hire somebody, give them a script and say, look, you call and I'll go on the appointments. But as we know, nobody knows the business as well as you do, and nobody is as good of a spokesperson for your own business as you are. And so I was trying to find a way to replicate me 24 hours a day that could sell, and that could always be the best that I could be, and that always could be present and accountable and there and delivering the best message that I could. And so that's when I started to look at brands and start to get into social media and start to really do my research on what people were doing to get their message out there, right? And it's kind of a funny story, but it hit me one day. So I didn't use social media traditionally. I'm not there, posting my whole life. At least 3 years ago, I wasn't. If you follow me now, you see that I do create a lot of content. I do try to share as much as my life I can every single day. But what I was getting at is I was consuming a lot of content on social media. I was trying to see what other people were doing and how they were using the platform, how they're using Facebook, how they're using Instagram, what people were putting on YouTube. And a couple ads started showing up in my feed. Back then, I think it was like 1 out of 20 posts was an ad, right? Now it's like 1 out of every 3 posts seems to be an ad. So it's becoming more full of sponsored ads. But I came across an ad for somebody who I'd followed, who I'd seen their content, I had listened to their podcast, I'd consumed what they had created, right? this person had never picked up the phone to call me. They'd never mailed me anything in the mail. They never door knocked me. They just simply had content out there that I was interested in consuming. And so as I saw their ad and I watched the little, minute, maybe minute and a half long video, it captured me. I clicked the learn more button like a lot of you have done, and it started bringing me into that ad. And so I consumed the ad. I took the action that the person wanted me to take. I hit the learn more. I started going to their website. I started looking at what that ad was trying to get me to do. And what it basically was for a seminar in Las Vegas that I had not been looking for, right? It was something that I wasn't looking for on purpose. It just came because the person knew that I had consumed their content, that they knew exactly who my interests were and what I was trying to accomplish in this life, being a business person. And so I went to that page, I registered for the event, and as I was hitting submit, I realized what had happened. This person had, again, not cold called me. They had not beat down my door so many times until I wanted to work with them. They followed up through content creation. They created content that I was interested in consuming. They put out material that I was wanting to better my life and seek out and do the things that I wanted to do. And by default, I was converting myself in my head based on the things that that person had put in front of me. So if you've heard this story, you know what I'm talking about, but this is Tony Robbins, okay? So I had registered for a $10,000 business mastery course that was being held in Las Vegas. I went with my partner, the two of us went, and it was a fantastic event. I learned a ton. If you've ever been to any of Tony Robbins' events, you'll know how much energy he brings and how incredible these events are. I think his shortest event is like 4 full days. This one was like 6 or 7 days from what I remember. But the point is that I knew at that moment that I didn't have to cold call people anymore. I didn't have to lead generate in the typical real estate way that most agents do, right? You're either taught to go knock on a whole bunch of doors. You're taught to pass out flyers. You're taught to mail people. I think yesterday I got the mail. We had like 4 huge postcards from local real estate agents talking about, recent solds in this area of my house. But I didn't have to do these traditional real estate things anymore. That we could simply start to create content that people wanted to consume that would better their lives, just like Tony was trying to do for me, and it would allow me to convert them as a client. And so that's what I want to get in today as we kind of figure out, what type of content can we produce that would be of interest to people. Some of the things I found is that, you're trying to get a hold of the homeowner. You're trying to get those listing appointments. You're trying to work with buyers who are new to the market, who are trying to, secure a house in the area. Maybe they're renters, maybe they're move-up buyers, maybe they're downsizing because they're retiring or their kids have moved out of their home. Whatever it is, you're trying to get in front of people who are trying to make a home decision. And for our county, that happens about once every 13 years. So it's a short, brief window when people decide that they want to sell a house or buy a house. It typically happens over about a 4 to 6 month period. And so over 13 years, you have 4 months to capture their attention, hopefully that they want to work with you, and hopefully you can become their real estate agent. And then conclude that transaction and then try to do it again in 13 years. For most of us, we won't even be in the business in 13 years, right? Like the turnover of real estate agent is so short that most of us won't see that client twice. But if you plan it out right and you do it well and you attract the clients that want to work with you based on the content that you can put out there, you're going to win every single time. So you got to start asking your questions. And the way I put this is reverse engineer the problem, right? So you got to think to the very end. What is the client trying to accomplish? Well, they're trying to either buy or sell a house. Those are the first 2 things. The next step is if you let's just focus on the listing agent or the listing for a little while, the seller who's trying to sell their house. What's the problem that they're trying to solve? People won't just sell their house because they want to sell their house. I mean, some people flip homes and that's a little different. But if you take a traditional family member who's lived in a house for 13 years, what are their goals? Either they've recently had more children and they're trying to buy a bigger house, right? Maybe they had a condo or a townhouse or a 1-bedroom or a studio or something like that. And they're saying, look, we've got more kids. We can't fit anymore. We need something else. So they're going to buy, a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house. Maybe their kids have progressed and they're getting to college age. So they maybe even need a bigger house depending on where you live. Some people will have multiple upgrades during their housing career. Other people, like our neighbors, ironically, they just sold their house because all their kids moved out to college and now it's just a husband and a wife. And they're like, look, we don't need our 5-bedroom house anymore. Let's go buy something a little bit simple or smaller. So you've got kind of that going on in their mind. So if you think about the process of where these people are in their mind, right? They're thinking about upgrading, or they're thinking about downsizing based on their human needs of where they are in their life. So if you took a step back again and said, okay, well, what's going on in their life that I can talk about? For a good majority, the people who are downsizing their home in life, they're probably in their late 50s, 60s, maybe even getting into 70 years old as their house starts to clear out and their kids go off to college or get married or do other things. And so you got to start speaking to them and their needs right now, right? If they've raised a family in a house, just looking around at my house, like it's probably been beat down by their kids, right? The carpet needs to be replaced. The kitchen probably wasn't really upgraded much during that time because they were putting all their money into their life, right? Like trying to get their kids fed and clothed and to school and just life. Those things come up. Most people put a lot more money into other things in life than they do their house. So my point is that the house is going to be kind of worn out and maybe not as well taken care of. So if you said, okay, what are the needs of that client? How can I bring them value so that they see that I'm a great real estate agent and that I know what I'm talking about? You can talk about maintaining a home. Maybe they need a new kitchen to sell that house, and so by investing, let's just say, $10,000 to $15,000, which it's kind of high for what we would do, but $10,000 to $15,000 in a new kitchen, you're probably going to be able to turn around and sell that house for potentially $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 more money. Our goal for every client that we worked with was that for every dollar that they'd put back into their house, they would get $7 in return. So if they spent $10,000 on a new kitchen, they would earn $70,000 more when they went to sell that house. So as you can say, okay, most people that I work with are going to need a new kitchen. They're probably going to need to upgrade their master bedroom and bathroom. They probably need new carpet, paint, maybe the landscape needs a little bit of help. These are the things that I can talk about. So as I started to think about what kind of content can I create, I'm thinking about this individual who's selling their house. They've got probably a beat up house. They know that they maybe need to discount their house, but you can step in and be the superhero. You can say, you know what, when I come and sell a house, I'll walk through with my interior designer and I'm going to help you guys maximize the value of this house by improving and upgrading the most important elements of your house: the kitchen, the master suite, and then basically the backyard. Those are the 3 or 4 things that I would focus on as a real estate agent. So I would teach the client before I ever even met with them the steps that we go through to sell a house in our area, right? Here's what kitchens are modern today, and here's what people are looking for. They want these type of countertops, they want these type of appliances, these are the trending colors that are in right now. And if all I had to do was go and show beautiful homes in this market that were selling for top dollar and what they were getting versus maybe some of the as-is homes, and how the price change was effective, you could show a house, at least in my area, and obviously you got to make these numbers work for you, but an updated kitchen versus a dated house of 20 years might have $100,000 or more delta, meaning that the price, was that much different. So if you came in and said, look, if you spend, $20,000 or $15,000 on this house, you're going to be able to sell it for $100,000 more money at the end of the day. That money can go back into your pocket. That's the goal for us here. By working with us, you have access to my interior designer. You have access to contractors that I know who work with the material that we use, who know exactly what your buyers are going to be looking for. When you work with me, you get all this, right? And then it goes even further into that of saying, look, when we've got this beautiful house, we need to demonstrate how amazing this property is. We need to take professional photos. We need to take professional videos. We need to do a walkthrough tour of this house, maybe even a 3D Matterport. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that before, where you set the camera all over the house and demonstrate, like if I stand here versus here versus here, how it looks. It's really cool. We used to do that with all of our listings. Just demonstrating and showing how amazing this house is and how it stands out, and then being able to run ads for this property so that, number one, the seller knows that you're doing a good job marketing the house, but number two, you're able to attract great clients and buyers to buy this house, and that you're going to have multiple offers the first week or so when you put this house on the market. So again, if you show everybody how you sell houses as a real estate before you even come to that transaction, before you ever show up to that doorstep for the listing appointment, they know everything about you. Don't you think when you do show up, they're going to be like, hey, Erik, your content is amazing. I can't believe that you remodel kitchens and you interior design a house and you take these amazing drone shots and you spend all this money on Facebook to advertise my property. Like no other agent in this area does that. I have to work with you. Where do I sign? Does that make sense? So the whole goal of this conversation here in this class is really to take you out of the situation of having to cold call people, having to reach out, having to be there every single morning, every single night on the phone, constantly calling, constantly door knocking and saying, how can I bring more value to the relationship before I even meet them? How can I show them what I do so that I stand out as a top real estate agent in this area? And and still charge the same amount of money that everybody else is, but bring more value so that I'll get picked right off the bat when there's competition. So that's my goal for you. If you can kind of paint that picture around how to provide value to that seller who's downsizing, I think you could probably take the relationship to these other individuals who are buying or selling, but I'll give you a couple more examples just to kind of demonstrate the purpose here. If you're working with a first-time home buyer, right? People are like, well, I can just show them a whole bunch of houses. I can tee it up to my IDX feed. I can just show them everything, right? Like, why are they going to want to come to you to see houses when Zillow and Redfin are probably the best and easiest to use apps and ability to see everything that's on the market that's coming? And I know some of you guys are going to fight with that comment, but for the most part, most of your clients are going to find their property on Zillow before you even find it on the MLS for them. And they're going to say, hey, I want to go see that house on Main Street. Can you go show it to me, right? Like, that's typically how a lot of buyers agents are working nowadays. Obviously, if you set up a custom search and you email them every day and you create that list, that can be very valuable to them. But for the most part, most homeowners are finding their new properties on Zillow and on Redfin. So if you said, okay, besides showing them what's currently available to the market, how else can I bring them value? How else can I create content that's going to be attractive for them? You can teach them about how to buy a house, right? So I have a sister-in-law right now who's in the process of buying a house, and I just assume that everybody knows everything about real estate because I've been in it for so long. I just understand this process, but it surprises me every once in a while the questions that I get from people. So she lives in another state, and they're looking at these older houses that are like 100 years old, and they're thinking they're going to want to buy this beater-upper and fix it up and remodel the kitchen and all this stuff. I'm like, great, like, I'll help you with it. Just let me know what you guys need. So we start going through the process, and I knew a couple agents in the area that I referred her to and a couple lenders that I referred her to. But just basic questions like, I don't know if we want to work with a real estate agent because I can't afford to hire one right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't you know that the real estate agent fee is covered? Like, in the transaction, like, you don't have to pay for that. Like, agents will just show you houses, and then when the time comes, the seller pays for that commission typically. And so just knowing that there's amazing questions that new buyers have that they haven't fully understood gives you a whole world of opportunity of content to create, right? So if you took your traditional first-time home buyer and you said, okay, they're renting, here's the process that they're in, here's what they're going through right now, here's some of the questions that they have, what content can I create, right? So number one is who pays for what in the transaction? How does searching for a home happen? Maybe you talk about Zillow and talk about Redfin and talk about your MLS IDX feed. Talk about, what happens when we go look at properties and how time is of the essence. Working with these clients who just bought a couple weeks ago, they were on their third home that they've owned in their life. So they kind of knew the process, but I don't think they understood the competitive nature of what San Diego is right now. So we would go look at a house and the agent would tell me, look, we've got 3 or 4 people looking at the house right now. It's the first weekend that it's up. We're probably going to be getting, 3 or 4 offers by Monday. If you're interested, we've got to move forward pretty quickly. And so I would call the client and I'd just say, hey, we saw this house, let's go look at the house. Do you like it? And their first thing, they'd be like, oh, we want to sleep on it for a while. And I said, guys, I appreciate that. I know that you want to think about it, but if you want to move forward to this house, you've got to write an offer. We've got to move forward because it's going to be under contract if you don't move forward. So just, again, explaining the principle of how time works in real estate and saying, if you're interested in a home, you got to write an offer. Here's how the market's going now. And maybe this is different in other areas or different times of the year where maybe homes sit on the market for a month before they go under contract. Right now, it's a matter of days in our town. And so if you're buying a house, you need to be quick. You need to be Johnny on the spot, have all your ducks in a row. You can't wait. You can't go wait to get your lending in place, right? So if I was making content for first-time home buyers, I would talk about how to search for a house. I would talk about, what am I looking for in a new house and really understanding my needs versus my wants. I would talk about affordability and saying, here's what the lender is going to say you're approved for. Do you want to go all in? Do you want to maximize your budget? Do you want to leave a little bit of room for maybe some upgrades in the future? Do you want to max out your dollar amount and maybe be at that point and be maybe strapped for cash all the time? Or do you want to be a little bit lower? Do you want to talk about, multiple livings like duplexes and triplexes versus single family homes? Again, there's so many things to consider when you're a first time home buyer that maybe you haven't thought about. So just explaining the process, explaining the time, explaining how you do your job and what the process of working with you is, right? When we took the seller, we talked about how you would, meet with a client. You'd talk about their home, their current situation. You talk about how you would prepare that house to be as beautiful as it could be. You would maximize its features. You would upgrade the things that need to be done. As a buyer agent, you talk about, here's where we first meet, and here's how you get approved. Here's a lender that I work with. Here's the 20 questions that they're going to answer. Here's the materials that you need to bring when you go get pre-approved with your lender. Here's how we start looking at houses. Here's how the timeline works. Once you go under contract, this is what happens over the next 21 days, so forth, right? So just, again, explaining these processes. And I know you're thinking, well, Erik, all this content is out on YouTube. If somebody really wants to know how to buy or sell a house, they just have to search. Yeah, that's great, but do you trust everything that's on the internet? Number one, there are probably people that don't tell the whole entire story. Number two is, why not tell it yourself? If people are coming to you as being the expert in real estate and knowing everything about the transaction on both sides, shouldn't you be the one speaking these words? Okay, so try to get it out in your own words. Try to get it out to describe the transaction, to describe how you buy or sell houses for clients, and distribute this content to your database. And the next question you probably ask is, how do I get this out there, right? Like, I make all this content, or I make these videos, or I write blogs, or I write articles about how to do these things. How do I get it out there so the world can see it? Number one goal that I have for all of my clients is to build a list, right? So you will either want an email list or you want a cell phone list. Those are the two things, because you own that data, right? If I have a huge following on Facebook, let's say I've got 100,000 followers on Facebook, and somehow Facebook gets shut down tomorrow because they did something crazy and the government says, all right, we're done with you, no more Facebook, you lost that complete audience. You'll never be able to communicate with again. Even though they loved you and they followed everything that you had to say and you're just the best person that they've ever heard from, they can't follow you because Facebook's gone. But if I have an email platform and Gmail's shut down tomorrow, all I have to do is re-upload that list to another one, and now I can email and email and email. And it's free, right? I don't have to pay to have my content seen. So if you can own the email address or you can own the cell phone number so that you can text people, that's the goal. So you should always think about creating content with the goal of trying to get people to subscribe to your newsletter, to join your list. And that would be platform number one, is send out a weekly email. Or if you can get into the habit of multiple times per week, my goal for everybody is daily emails, which seems like a ton, and I'm not going to get into the strategic plan behind that, but more consistent communication with your audience is key. But at least on a weekly basis, if you can provide some type of content that's going to better their life, like I said, all this video content that we've been talking about. And then number two after email would be a social media platform, right? So instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to double down and triple down on Facebook and say, this is where my area is, that's a great starting plan, and you should definitely pick one platform to be on from the very beginning, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or YouTube or wherever your audience is. You've got to understand that I got to double down on that one audience. But as I start to grow and start to expand, you've got to realize that some people are just on YouTube and they're not on Facebook, or some people are just on Instagram and they're not on YouTube. So you need to put content everywhere that you can. The problem is that you can't just create one piece of content and distribute it among all platforms, right? I can't make a 10-minute video about working with my mortgage lender, put that on YouTube, which will work. Yes, that's the great place. I can upload it to Facebook, but for the most part, people don't consume 10-minute videos in their newsfeed. So you got to figure out where to put it on Facebook. And then Instagram doesn't even let you upload a 10-minute video. You can go live for 10 minutes, but then it's gone. But you can't just post a 10-minute video to Instagram. And then the other thing to consider, let me grab my phone, is that some people consume data this way and some people consume content this way, right? So how you post your video matters as well. So when you're creating content, think about, okay, who's going to watch this and where should I put this? If I'm going to make it for YouTube and I want to go long, 10 minutes, right? My goal is to have people search for this content. So having good keywords and search terms is very important. But then also just updating my list, right? So I might make a YouTube video that's 10 minutes long that, again, talks to my lender and answers all the questions that a buyer might have about working with a lender for the first time. I put that on YouTube. My next goal would be to try to drive as much traffic to YouTube to, number one, get them to watch the video, and number two, get them to subscribe to that channel so that they can see more content in the future. So what I would do is, if I'm on other platforms, I get on Facebook, I go live on either a Facebook Live and talk about it, or I might go into a Facebook story, that is, short, 10, 15, 20 seconds at the most, and just say, hey guys, I just uploaded a new piece of content about how to work with a lender for the first time. Go check out our YouTube channel. Here's the link. Maybe you have some text in the bottom of the Facebook or the live story. And then people can basically come from Facebook over to YouTube to check it out, right? And then again, in YouTube, you're of course going to have all your social media channels in the comments below so that people can go follow you in other places. So you're cross-breeding the people and you're trying to get them to see as much as you can everywhere you go. If you consume content on social media, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll know that sometimes I consume content on YouTube for a few hours and like, that's it. Sometimes I'll watch a bunch of stories on Instagram. Just start following how you consume content, and your prospects, your clients are probably going to be consuming content the same way. The other thing to consider really quick, I didn't want to get too deep into social media, but just talking about social media is to understand the database, or not the database, struggling to find the words I'm looking for today, the age demographic that you're speaking to, right? So for me, we did a poll in San Diego County. It was in 2017, so it's a couple years old, so you can't use this data anymore if you're here. It probably has changed a little bit, but the average age of a seller in 2017 was 72 years old. Okay, that was the average age. If you took the last 100 transactions during a certain month that we did, we just wanted to say, okay, what's the average age of a seller? You obviously had 30-year-olds and 90-year-olds and everybody in between, but the average became 72. And so we realized, okay, we've got to communicate with a 72-year-old audience. They weren't on Facebook at the time, right? They weren't really on social media. And so for us, mailing content in that fashion, like a trifold letter, made most sense to communicate with that specific audience. But you might be in another part of town where you say, look, the average age of a seller in my town is 33 years old or 35 years old or 40 years old or whatever they are. Where are they going to be, right? If they're 30 to 40 years old, maybe they're probably going to be on Instagram or Facebook. So you got to figure out how to give them content where they're going to consume. What you don't want to say is, okay, my seller is 75 years old. I'm going to send them to Snapchat because that's where all my followers are and that's where I want them to consume content. You've got to go where the audience is. So again, figure out who your audience is and who you're trying to communicate with. Is it a first-time home buyer? Is it a 72-year-old seller? Maybe you want to work with everybody. You've got to create content in the niches where they are. So work with the seller on Facebook, work with the buyer on Instagram, however it comes across. Just know where your audience is going to be. Do some homework about where your audience is. Try to figure out who they are. All we did, if you want to do the same kind of result, is we basically took the last 100 transactions over a single month, and we said we took the name of the homeowner who sold that property, and we took it into people search. And then from there, it basically told us the age of that person. And it was a little bit off. Like sometimes it might be 45 when they're really 50. But for the most part, that data was pretty accurate for us. So getting to know who your clients are, getting to know who your demographic that you want to speak to, understanding where they're going to consume the content, and then what they're looking for, right? So you probably have a good mix of buyers and sellers in your area, because for every house that sells, someone's got to buy it. You know, it depends on obviously if the buyer is an investor versus a homeowner, things like that. But then you got to also take into account, you know, who wants to listen to me. In my area, there's a lot of areas, cities and towns where the homeowner's older, right? They've been around for a while. They've probably lived here for 40, 50 years. They know everybody. Being new to an area is hard to be a real estate agent because you're not in all the social crowds. You're not in the mix of who people know. And so they're going to go to the old time real estate agents that they've known forever and speak to that crowd. And so if you're, for example, if you're trying to sell homes, there's one area, and I'll give you an idea. There's one area near me where the homes sell between like $2.5 and $4 million. And it would be amazing to sell all of my homes in that area because the commission would be so much higher. The problem is that most of the homeowners who live in this area are international. They own a home here for either tax reasons or for schools. They don't necessarily live here. And so if I'm trying to communicate with that audience, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to spend more of my budget trying to convert those homeowners to work with me than if I would have gone and found maybe a $500,000 or $700,000 neighborhood where, you know, these people live here, they work here, their kids go to school here, they're homegrown. And so I've got to understand, you know, who am I trying to communicate with? I would say, what's the average of the 80% of transactions that happen in my area? That's the target audience that I would want to go for. So let's back up a little bit more to, let me just check my time here so I make sure we're good. Okay, good. Got a couple more minutes. We're going to wrap it up and leave about 15 minutes for questions. And I know that we probably have a ton of questions here based on what we're sharing. So I want to just kind of wrap this up and be clear about it. Number one goal is to understand who your target audience is, right? Are they buying? Are they selling? Are they upgrading? Are they downgrading or downsizing? You know, are they having kids? Is it, you know, their first kid? Is it their fourth kid? If they are moving, are they moving out of state? Are they relocating for a job? Are they here for, you know, maybe VA work? You know, what's the purpose of this move? Why do they have that transaction happening? What caused them to put their house on the market, or what's causing them to look for a new house? And then number two, what are the problems that I can solve with the content that I create? Are they first-time homebuyers and have no idea what they're doing? Are they, selling that condo that they've lived in and they've never dealt with a yard? So maybe I need to teach them about owning, the outside of their house and how roof maintenance works, and about water heaters and solar and landscaping, things that the homeowner in a condo has never dealt with, right? If I can teach them about that ownership. Maybe again, I'm dealing with a homeowner who's lived in a 5-bedroom house for 20 years, and now they're going more to the condo or townhouse, the simple life, so that they can travel. And I talk about, the joys and benefits of living in a simple house like a townhouse, so that they can just lock it up, go visit their grandkids for a couple weeks, and then come back when they're ready. So teaching your clients how to solve the problems that they currently have is incredible content. Again, speaking to them in a fashion that they'll consume it, that they'll actually want to know what they are. A couple ideas of how to figure that out is just go to your area. If there's a program that I'm struggling to remember the name of right now, but basically what you can do is you can go into Google and see what people are searching for, right? I think it's called like Google keyword search, and you can find out what people are searching for. So you can say like, how do I, maintain my landscape? How do I upgrade my roof or replace my roof? How do I, and find out home search terms that people are looking for, and then go create content around that. If there's other people answering these questions, there's a good chance that other people are asking these questions. So don't be afraid because somebody else already created this video on YouTube, or already made a podcast about it, or already did some live video about it, that you shouldn't. You should, because if somebody else is answering that question, again, somebody asked it, so it makes sense for you to answer it as well. Then after you understood exactly what the problem is that they're trying to solve, it's distributing the content, it's getting it out to them on a regular basis. The last thing you want to go do is make 3 or 4 videos, say, oh my gosh, this took so much effort. I made all these videos, they're perfect. I had them edited by my video editor, and then I put them out there and nothing happens. That happens because it's consistency. You can't make 5 videos and expect to have a whole bunch of listings. Remember how much effort calling takes every single day, 4 to 6 hours a day? I'm not saying that now you can not lead gen. I'm just saying that it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of consistency. You might have to spend 4 hours a day making content for the next 6 months so that you can kind of step back from that lead gen and be able to just kind of put it on autopilot. So for us around here, just to kind of give an example of what I've done with my brand, because I'm trying to get myself out there and trying to show all the real estate agents and small business owners exactly how to build their brand online, is I create content every single day. My goal is to put out something every single day so that the more I put out there, the more chance I have of being found or searched by somebody, right? So twice a week, we create a 30-minute show that's live. We answer questions. We go live on Facebook because people can kind of come in, come out. They can see what we're doing, and then we repost that content to YouTube. Every single day, I'll go live for maybe 10 minutes and just kind of share what I've learned that day. It could be a social media strategy. It could be a content idea. It could be something about hiring a team member, just the things that I'm going through in my own business and how I can help bring some value to you guys. On top of that, we're just about to start releasing a podcast, which is going to be coming out daily. We do a vlog once a week. So as you can see, like, I have a lot of content that comes out. On top of that, we've got a lot of written content as well, blogs and articles as well. We do a lot of live shows like this where we do webinars and we take that recording and put it out there as well. There's a bunch of stuff. And the point is I can't just go create 3 videos and figure out that my content creation is done. I've got to keep creating content. I got to keep delivering, because what happens if I go interview my lender once, right? And we have a fantastic interview. We answer the top 10 questions that most people ask about interviewing a mortgage lender and how to work with them and what's going to happen. But then all of a sudden, you know what, maybe the way that I spoke that day was offensive to somebody, or maybe how fast I spoke that day was too fast for the clients that I'm working with, and maybe I need to slow down, right? Like, I talk at a fast pace. If you're listening to this, you can tell that I'm trying to get out a lot of content. And maybe the answers change, right? So you might ask a question like, what do you need today to qualify for a loan? And then in 6 months, that might change. Maybe they need a new document. Maybe there's something else. So if you can interview your lender maybe once a quarter, maybe you interview the plumber about, changing the water heater a year. Maybe you get up on the roof or talk to the roofer about solar panels and the programs that are available for solar panels and renewable energy twice a year, right? There's things that can be multiple interviews that you can approach from different angles. Again, new questions are going to come up. Somebody might see one of your videos and say, you know what, you covered those questions great, but I've got 3 more questions that you didn't get to. Write those down and ask them the next time that you interview one of your subcontractors. So the point is keep it consistent, keep getting it out there and sharing it with the world, and just be a content creation machine. And you're going to nail it from there. So that's kind of my story here. I know we've got a couple questions and there's a couple other things that we want to talk about. Before I turn the mic back over, I wanted to tell you about something that we created. It's almost been a year. It's probably been about 8 or 9 months now. But what it is, and many of you may have heard about this in the past, is I'm part of a group called Agent Centrics on Facebook. And many of you are part of the larger group. I think there's anywhere between like 18 and 25,000 members of it right now. It's a great platform, Facebook group. It's basically a place where you can show up and ask questions and get ideas for how to do things, right? What we did is we took that idea and made it a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, and we provide a lot more value in these small groups. And so I think we're gonna pull up a slide that's gonna talk about how to do it. But basically, we created a private Facebook group for Agent Centrics where for one payment for the entire year, you get access to a live video from us once a week. So once a week, I go live. There's the link. Hopefully you guys can write that down. It's kind of a long one. But what happens is once a week on Thursdays, it's actually starting at 11 o'clock, so right after this class, I'll go live for 1 hour and I'll teach you guys a concept, a principle, something to do with marketing, something with social media, some content ideas, the questions that you should ask that solar guy when you're on the roof. It's basically just a Facebook group for you, the real estate agent. So it's intimate, it's small, it's a place to get your questions answered. You can post any question you want on there. You can consume the past classes. So every class that we've taught over the last 9 months, I think we have probably almost 40 of them by now. You can go and see all those replays. They're available on a dashboard. And then you can also consume all the future ones going forth. And so what it is it's basically $250 for a 12-month access, which turns out to be $20 a month. So it averages out to be about $5 per hour long class. So that's pretty affordable, I would say. But again, it's up to you. The questions that you ask get answered. If you show up and you just consume, you get what you get. If you show up and you ask questions, we're here to answer anything you want. The cool thing about it is we do it over Zoom. And so we share screens, we get into Facebook, we talk about the ad manager, we talk about the struggles that people are having. How do I upload this? How do I edit that? What keywords should I put on my YouTube? How do I set up my CRM? All that stuff's covered. So if you're interested in learning more, I know this isn't clickable, but go to that link right there, the agentcentrics.com one. And it's basically just going to take you to a landing page where you can learn a little bit more about what it is that we offer. And if you're interested, feel free to sign up. And the cool part about it is we're always offering the Allison James agents a promotion because I love you guys so much. If you join and you pay the $250, you actually get $200 of it back. There's a $50 setup fee. And then for the rest of the year, it's only $50. So pretty cool options. And anyway, hope to see you guys in there. Again, it's a fantastic group and a lot of contribution, a lot of good content in there. So yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, we're going to open up a little bit of time left for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to open your chat box in the control panel and ask away. So we'll give that a couple of minutes for anyone who wants to take advantage of it.
Awesome.
And for everyone, just so you know, I will be sending this recorded replay of this webinar, and we will include the Agent Centrics link at the bottom. So if you didn't get a chance to write it down or forget it, it will have a clickable link in the email with the video replay as well. All right.
Get a lot over here. Sorry about that.
Okay. Let's okay, so question is from Wendy. What tools do you recommend to do more demographic related searches?
Yeah, so well, the one I mentioned before was basically it's called People Search, I believe it's called. People Search. If I'm not looking at it, I always forget what it's called. But what we did is we basically went to the title company and we said, okay, we want to find out the last 100 transactions, right? And so we found the last 100 transactions. They provided us a list. They basically gave us the address of the property and then the owner's name. And the reason why you need both of those is because you can go to peoplesearch.com and type in the name of the person, and then you can put the town that they live in, right? And so you're basically searching for the home that they used to own. So let's just say it's, John Smith, and they live on Main Street in any town, USA. When you go into peoplesearch.com, it's going to show you this information. And we had a free account, so you don't even have to pay for this information. And it's basically going to tell you the last couple places they lived. If you pay them money, it'll tell you what their phone number is. But most importantly, it's going to tell you their age, which is great. So it might say like 40 years old or 45 years old. It's not going to always be down to the year and birthday and things like that. So you're not going to be able to send them a birthday card, but it's going to give you enough information to kind of get a ballpark of where that age range is. So that can be pretty helpful.
Great. Okay, and then Lisa had asked Erik, she says she's not that media savvy. If she wants to start with one social media platform, say Facebook, where does she start?
That's a great question. So many people are good consumers of social media. They can open the app and they can scroll with their thumb, right? And then that's about the level of their expertise. And I totally appreciate that. To be honest, I was not a big social media user back in the day. I think like Facebook came out, I want to say in 2007, 2008. I don't even think I had my first Facebook account until 2013 because I just, again, didn't care. Like I wasn't there to share my life with people. I'm kind of a private introvert for the most part. Like my life's changed because I know that I need to create the content to get it out there. And so you have two options. Number one is go YouTube everything. How do I use Facebook for ads? How do I create an ad? How do I post something? How do I upload a video? And you can search and you can consume a ton of content. And my obvious answer number two is join Agent Centrics and we'll show you how. We do very basic stuff and we do more advanced stuff depending on the questions that we get. Sometimes we'll get a lot of basic questions and I'll go through, here's how I set up my business page, because every one of you needs a business page on Facebook to produce this content. You can't just do it from your personal account. And if I've already lost you, you should join Agent Centrics because we just keep it that simple. The other thing too, and I don't want to sell you guys anything besides recommending this Agent Centrics course here. We've created a ton of great posts and courses about how to use social media as a beginner. So if that's something that you're interested in, Lisa, I think that we probably have a link to email me or something like that on here. But if you just reach out to me on Facebook at Erik Hammond, I'm happy to talk to you about some of the courses that we've taught on how to use social media, where we cover Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all of them. And just show you from the very beginning, I've never been to the account. Here's how I can set it up. So hopefully that helps. But if not, YouTube can be your best friend. If you've got plenty of time, just Google it and YouTube will show you how to do it.
Awesome. The last question I have is if I could post the link, which I did. So if everyone focuses in on their chat, I did post the link, so it will be clickable.
Awesome.
Erik, there's one more question actually. What specific material do you request from the title companies?
Okay, so what I would do is, let's just take it like today's date. So you probably are almost through August. If you want to wait till September, you could do this. But I would basically say, I want to know whatever sold during the month of July, right? So you'll have a full exact month to see everything that happened. The more data, the better. For us, we just did 100 transactions, but you could do even more. So you could say, okay, title company, in the month of July, tell me just the properties that sold. I just want to know who the homeowner was. So give me as much information about the homeowner. It could be, first and last names. A lot of times people have them in a trust or an LLC, so you're not going to be able to figure that out. That's why you need as much data as you can, because you're only going to get a partial amount of information. So you want to know the first and last name of the homeowner, and then you're going to want to get the address of the property that sold. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith, whatever their name is, and then 123 Main Street and the property address. That's really all you need. Some title companies will provide you cell phone numbers or all that kind of stuff. You don't really need it because you're not calling these people. The transactions already happened. You're just needing a name and an address so that you can search for it that way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have today. Like I said, everybody, we will be sending a recorded version of this along with the links. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge, huge thank you to Erik for hosting this month's webinar and giving such a great presentation. We hope you have a great day, and we hope to see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good being here. Bye, guys.
Bye.